It's quite sad to think about how generalized the first-person shooter scenes have become. It's always the same kind of running and gunning gameplay now. You've played one of the Call of Duty games, you've played most of every FPS games out there. There used to be a variety in the genre back in the good old days. You had revolutionary movement shooters such as the Halo, where you could jetpack around and the maps were genuinely playgrounds for you to be able to do that. Then after a while Modern Warfare released, and it brought with a plethora of clones that kept ripping off the particular gameplay style. All of a sudden every first-person shooter wanted it to be Call of Duty. You had games inspired to be Call of Duty, and yet after so long, EA's crown jewel, Respawn Entertainment, chose to stand up and bring the genre back to life. The original Titanfall game released to a huge critical acclaim, but it wasn't until the sequel came out that the franchise really became one of the most exciting shooters in the gaming history. It has been solid 6 years since Titanfall 2 came around and revolutionized the movement-based shooting game scene. This was a genuine game that wanted to do something different, and it did so by elevating your gameplay with a few features that can't be found anywhere else. So this isn't a simple review of a Titanfall 2, but rather a retrospective view of how the game was fundamentally different to almost all shooters of the past 10 years, combined with how it affected me personally. The biggest and the most important aspect for me personally was the campaign. It's not just a simple story here. This is a genuinely film-tier cinematic experience. I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who still haven't played it, but if you haven't, then you really should consider playing it nonetheless. The story is set in a far distant future, where multiple factions of humanity are at war with one another. To make war even more devastating, we have created Titans, giant mechas that are commandeered by a highly trained, skilled and combat-ready pilot. The story begins at the edge of the final frontier, as Jack Cooper, a common foot soldier, begins to bond with a Titan as you both unexpectedly thrown into a larger-than-life situation to prevent catastrophic events. It's amazing that the story focused entirely on you as the main characters, and your relationship with the artificial being known as BT. BT is your Titan. You find him dead and out of service of the remote planet after his pilot is killed, and you begin to work together with BT as you work to prevent the catastrophe that might kill millions. The game chooses to specifically focus on you and BT, showcasing how the relationship goes from sense of mistrust and even hostility to growth and maturity, where you and BT begin to form a bond of friendship that scales higher as the story progresses. This is one of the particular points in the story that I absolutely adore, and that was the point in the story where I realized how canonically different this game's story is than what I've ever realized. I came for the blood, bullets and glory, yet what I got was so much more profound. When Jack trusts BT enough to let him throw him across the whole area is when you realize how far you've come as the friends. It's truly something magnificent, and the ending to the story is one that brings not just satisfaction, but a lot of the admiration for the writers too. This game sparked a movement shooter revolution. Naru was a game so revolutionary that it was sparked games such as the Call of Duty to make a wall running a mechanic, and after Team Fortress 2, Titanfall 2 has to be the most innovative game in this regard. Not only were their control schemes tight and shooting sensations snappy, but the movement was so fluid and smooth that it puts games like Mirror's Edge and Dying Light to shame with its parkour system. Titanfall 2 movement was revolutionary. In other games of the movement shooter genre, the most you could hit were drop shots, crouch spams, strafe shots and perhaps jump shots. But here you had those things combined with a whole different arsenal of pilot abilities that enhanced the gameplay experience. You had everything, from high jumps, double jumps, indefinite wall running, flying around in your mecha suit, grappling and even time traveling at some part of the core game mechanics. There was an infinite amount of movement opportunities, and it made the game feel so satisfying. There isn't a feeling more gratifying than hitting a series of headshots as you jump from wall to wall and blast enemies with your weapon mid-air. It is nearly impossible to make gameplay of the first-person shooter game feel cinematic, and yet in Titanfall 2 did so with genuine grace. The gameplay wasn't just fun in the single player too, it also translated perfectly to the multiplayer. I remember hitting headshots while grappling in the multiplayer with a sniper rifle. There was just that feeling of an accomplishment that you can't find anywhere else. Not to mention the level design in this game perfectly influenced this gameplay strategy and push you to continue elevating your aim and your reflexes as you run across walls and tap people out. There's also a ton of weapon variety. Here you can also learn to play with different combinations and chain those together to create some of the best highlight reels in the world. You had assault rifles, light machine guns, submachine guns, sniper rifles, shotguns and grenade launchers all in the same world. You could switch between the loadouts of your choice whenever you liked. There's a tremendous amount of skills that goes into mastering this game's movement, but even as a novice, there is a sense of wonder that it brings with its core gameplay alone that can't really be found in any other of the games of the movement shooter variety. Titans are a huge part of this game, and that's what also made this game's campaign even more memorable. There was an actual boss fights here, boss arenas with hundreds of grunts shooting at you, along with the big ass enemy titans that you had to take out. The genuine sense of a scale that you could truly feel while you were there in these robotic Goliaths, and it was just outstanding. And the gameplay limitations were never there. The Titans also so versatile too, in particular your own Titan, which can be customized with different abilities and weapons that made the gameplay feel even more varied than it already was. Some of the best story moments in this game came from the Titan sequences, and those sequences were constantly popping up to make you feel rewarded for playing the game. I remember that there was just one particular fight against the Flying Titan. That one really hit the spot of how creative this game was with its original design. There was one dull moment in the entire campaign, and it was short-lived but extremely engaging the whole way through. The best part about it all was the balance. You don't get too much Titan action and you don't get too much of the pilot action. There was a mix of both that keeps you on your feet and the whole time you've been playing the game. Titanfall 2 multiplayer was extraordinary, perhaps the most fun you could have in the online multiplayer shooter game to date. It's a shame that this game's multiplayer scene didn't live up for too long, because it was amazing from the beginning to the end. You had these gigantic maps that were playgrounds for your squad and the enemy squads to duke it out. You had Titans constantly rolling out into the battlefield, pilots running around and grappling through the map, grenades being thrown, guns being fired and bullets soaring past your guy's head as you jump from wall to wall. The game genuinely never knew when to stop, and being the adrenaline junkie as that I am, it was liberating to play something that extraordinary in the prime of its life. Titanfall 2 is a game that's extremely close to my heart. It's been 6 years since it originally came out, and it still lives in my game library rent-free. This is a game that you can always head back to whenever you're feeling down. If you want something to lift your spirits up, whether through exciting gameplay or a heart-touching story about friendship, then there's nothing better than Titanfall 2 that you should look forward to playing. There's an excitement and love for crafting innovative stories and gameplay loops that was showcased here, and this was a game that truly highlighted why EA, as a publisher, was willing to make the right decision for their fans at the time. Please consider supporting me on my Patreon to see these special videos earlier, including with the extra rewards, and check out my playlist of all of the special videos that I have already released. I'm very proud of them, and do let me know what you think of them. Like and subscribe, and have an amazing day.